Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, joined as we are every Tuesday at 8:20 by our friend Austin Price of VolQuest's and On3 at Austin Priceless, where you follow him on Twitter. Austin, good morning. How are you?
Good Tuesday morning, everybody.
Hey, Austin.
Austin, we saw Tennessee play the national champion about a month ago. Seems like a year ago when the college football playoff began. In order for Tennessee to get to that level, to the elite level in college football, what's going to happen over these next couple of seasons in your mind to catch up with a team like Ohio State?
Well, I think you got to continue to add talent to your roster. That's both in recruiting and in the transfer portal. You've got to continue to develop, and I think at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing is Nico has to take a big step, heading into year two as the starter. I think you look at Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow, year one to year two for those particular players, they made huge steps. Now they won the Heisman Trophy in year two, both of them did. They're both at LSU, but like you look at year two for a lot of people in Josh Heupel's system, normally there's a significant jump. And, I think for Nico, this was a great first year. I know some people probably put like unwarranted expectations on him because of the NIL contract and all that, but a nice start. But he's got to take a big jump. And if you take an elite jump at quarterback, then I think everything else comes with you. So, the biggest thing I think is Nico taking a jump, but continuing to put talent around him, continuing to develop the talent you have on your roster.
Well, Tennessee did add some talent in the transfer portal as Duke running back Star Thomas commits to the Vols. Austin, what does this staff like about Star Thomas? What ultimately made Tennessee the best fit for him?
A nice combo player, someone who, can do a little bit of everything, a veteran, an older guy in the room, a productive player at Duke, had over 1,000 total yards this past year, 800 yards rushing, and, just adds a nice piece to the room to go along with Deshaun Bishop and obviously, Lewis and then those two true freshmen. So, I think for Tennessee, to me, it still starts with Peyton Lewis and Deshaun Bishop. Star Thomas has to come in and prove himself here. And you go back a year ago, Tennessee brought in a tight end out of the transfer portal and Holden Stays to go along with Ethan Davis, and then they brought in what most people thought, I included and everybody else, that another body to help build depth in Miles Kitselman, and then you learn pretty quick in spring, Miles Kitselman's a little better than they realized. And so, is Star Thomas going to be that way? I don't know. We'll see. But again, it's on him to prove it. I think you start with the first two and then go from there.
Austin Price of VolQuest's and On3 with us this morning. Austin, when you speak about spring practice in this time of year also, man, the major question I have, considering all things I've seen from the Polynesian Bowl to some of the pre-college football playoffs like practices, is David Sanders Jr. looks like a left tackle. Or the decision between him as a Lance Hurd to switch sides, where are they at on that?
I don't think they've made any kind of call. If you were asking me what they will do, I would say pretty strong possibility that Lance Hurd is your left tackle. Now they've done that. They moved Darnell to the right side. They moved John Campbell to the right side. They've done different things. Joe Mincy moved to the right side, but I'm just not sure they do that. I'd say Lance Hurd will be your left tackle and David Sanders will be your right tackle if I were a betting man, as we said here on January 21st.
No doubt about it. Also, you mentioned better quarterback play from a guy like Nico Iamaleava. With that being said, do you have an idea what kind of weapon he's going to get out of a guy like Boo Carter, who's won a lot of the hearts of Vols fans? And from my understanding, that was a part of his conversation with Coach Heupel and his staff, is his ability to play both sides.
Yeah, Boo's very dynamic. You go back to the high school ranks, and the kid's special when he's got the ball in his hands. You look at him as a punt returner. He's shifty. He can kind of, get in and out of the phone booth, so to speak, and not get tackled. And I think to see him at this level, we've seen what he can do on punt returns, but we've not seen him on offense yet. So, I don't want to put too much pressure on the kid, but I think the kid can definitely be an asset on the offensive side of the ball for Tennessee. And I think you'll continue to see him get some work there. I do think Jermon McCoy's injury, though, has put a little more pressure on him on the defensive side of the ball, because they're going to need both he and Ricky Gibson to be really, really good at their spots now until Jermod can get healthy, while they find kind of Jermod's temporary replacement.
Austin Price, our good friend of VolQuest, joining us this morning on RK Dub. You mentioned the transfer portal addition of Duke running back Star Thomas. In addition to that, the two other players they have had added so far, offensive lineman Wendell Moe and wide receiver from Alabama, Amari Jefferson. Austin, do you foresee, when that portal opens back up in April, any other changes or additions, I should say? And if anything, where do they need them?
Yeah, I mean, technically, like, you have Notre Dame and Ohio State who have their 5-day windows opening up today. So does anybody on those two teams enter the portal that might catch Tennessee's eye that, Tennessee would have interest in going after? We'll see. But yeah, if they don't get anybody in this window, then obviously it would be the spring window. I think a lot of it, I think they'll definitely add a receiver. They got to have more than 7 bodies. Preferably, you'd love to add one now, but, does anybody enter that you could go after and potentially land? It's, if not, you're looking at 7 bodies for the spring, 4 of which have never played a college down. Two of the other 3 have played very little, and then Chris Brazel being the third. And, so you've got some question marks at receiver. And then, what do they look like if they're not able to add an offensive lineman between now and, let's say, next weekend? What does that look like in the spring? Does Tennessee feel comfortable coming out of the spring, or do they feel like they need to go get somebody? We'll see kind of how it all transpires. But I don't think Tennessee's technically done before spring ball starts, because I think there's possibilities, with these two teams that you could see somebody go in the portal that Tennessee might have interest in. And then, after that, I think a lot of it depends on how you feel coming out of spring.
Austin, when you look at the roster right now, and I know there's still going to be some changes, but in terms of experience, maybe what position do you feel comfortable at with just that depth and experience going into next year?
Well, I think you feel really good at tight end.
Yeah.
At least I do. I think you feel pretty good about the offensive line. I think you still feel pretty good about the defensive line. Linebacker, I think there's some real quality depth there. Now, it's young depth, and so, there's some inexperience there that you'll have to work through. I would have told you corner, and nickel until Jeremiah McCoy got hurt, but then that got a little more thin. Now, again, how quick can he get back? Everybody heals at a different rate. As Jason Swain has said, Amari Rogers tore his ACL in the spring at Clemson, had an incredible recovery, was back for the first game. There's that. Then there are guys that, take a full 9-10 months to come back. So, where's Jermon McCoy at in the healing process? Is he a quick healer? Is he a slow healer? Every kid's different. And so, I think those are probably the main positions I'm looking at. Running back is one where I feel like Tennessee's okay there, but to me there's still some unproven players at running back, and I think, you want to continue to see those guys grow.
Austin, do you think Tennessee was hurt by being in the college football playoff and having to recruit the portal at the same time? And do you feel like they have regrets about just how quickly they were able to hit the ground running while they were preparing for a first-round game in Columbus?
No, I don't think so. I think you could obviously debate that all day long, Will, but I think for Tennessee, at that point in time, it was more about roster retention than it was roster addition. And, they were trying to lock in some of the players that they're going to need, next fall that were on their current team. And I think that's the hard part of all this, is you have all these negotiations going on and potential players coming in and out for visits, and you're trying to prepare for a game. And that don't even count like your early enrollees getting here all that same week too and going through things. So just again, that's why you've seen a lot of coaches try to push for this calendar change to where you don't have free agency during the season. Like that, it's just really, really difficult. And so I think, I don't think they regret anything. Again, I think the biggest thing was roster retention, and I think they've done a pretty good job of keeping everybody that they wanted to keep at Tennessee.
Austin, it's incredible the pathway Harrison Bailey has taken to get to Florida. And it's interesting, we're now in an era in college football where you are willing to pay to get a transfer in to be a backup to a very established starter. Tennessee has not gone that route at quarterback specifically. Without Gaston Moore backing up Nico Iamaleava next season, how comfortable do you think Josh Heupel and his staff are with Jake Merklinger and the incoming freshman George McIntyre and the options they have in that room behind Nico?
I think you have to be very comfortable. I mean, Jake will be in year 2 in the system and, talented kid. At some point, he was going to be able to get past Gaston. And so, for Gaston, I think he's, still trying to find his future home and, go play somewhere and, give him a chance to be on the field, which is something that he really wanted. And realistically, he probably wanted it a year ago, but Tennessee was able to convince him to come back and be Nico's backup. And that proved to be a crucial part. I mean, he got a whole second half against an SEC team because Nico got hurt and, did pretty well. And so I think for Josh Heupel and company, I think this is the deepest the room has been since Joe was backing up Hendon and you had Taven Jackson as the number 3. 3 quality bodies, 3 highly rated guys. Now, the experience isn't necessarily there with Merklinger or George, but the talent is there. And so I think that, I think this room is deeper than it's been the last 2 years.
Austin, when you're looking at the guys that have departed this year, whether it be Cooper, whether that be Omar Norman, Lott, just who's got the biggest, void to be filled as it pertains to that group right there as, guys
Cooper.
that are leaving out? Is Cooper?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, he's been your starter at center for 4 years. Josh Heupel and Glenn Ellerby have been here for 4 years, going into year 5, and this is the first time they've had to forcibly make a change at center, right? Cooper got hurt a little bit, had to put Aldi Lane at center or Jerome Carvin because Cooper had an ankle. But, Cooper's always been there, and now Cooper's not there. And so you forcibly have to change to somebody else. Is that William Satterwhite? Is it Max Anderson? Is it Jesse Perry? Is it somebody else? Time will tell. But, I think ultimately, I think that's the biggest replacement you have because Cooper just carried himself. The kid was a finalist for the Remington Award for the nation's top center. I'm not saying he can't be replaced because every player can be replaced, but it's going to be interesting to see when they're there's no more Javonte Spraggins. There's there's no more Cooper Mays. There's no more Big O. There's some change out there that's kind of forced upon them, and so it will be interesting to see Glenn Ellerby adapts to a new offensive line without guys he's only known since he's been here.
No doubt about it. One guy that I'm expecting a lot from, because the conversation I've had surrounding this young man, and the freak athlete that he is and how young he is, Jordan Ross can take a big step for this team. I know he got a block punt this year, and I know he also had a penalty on punts too. But all I've heard is he doesn't understand what he doesn't understand about himself yet, and he could be that type of guy.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. They need he and Caleb Herring to take steps, right? You're losing James Pierce. Josh Josephs becomes, option 1 at that spot. And then who is option 2?
Yeah.
Caleb Herring probably gets the first crack, but Jordan Ross is a young kid with a ton of talent, and he's going to be coming. So Caleb Herring, he's got to have his head on a swivel. And then they need some of these other younger players. At the end of the day, if Tennessee's invested a lot of money NIL-wise in some of these freshmen, they've got to get to the field. And that's something I don't think they've been exactly the best at the last year or two in terms of, kind of taking where their NIL dollars are spent and getting kids to the field pretty quick. Some kids have. Boo Carter, played a ton this year and started a bunch of games, but Mike Matthews did not. So the question is does the philosophy change with some of the players that Tennessee has invested in NIL-wise to get them to the field as quick as possible in 2025?
Yeah.
He is Austin Price of VolQuest's and on 3 Tuesdays at 8:20 here on the show at Austin Priceless, where you follow him on social media. Austin, thank you, sir. Appreciate it as always.
Hey, guys, before I go, just realize it's Tuesday, the 21st of January. This is the first time we spoke to Will Bowling this year. Think about that.
Wow.
Think about that.
That's true. That's very true. Thank you, Austin.
Let that resonate. If I had your life, man, I mean, I'm telling you, if I had your money, Will, I'd burn you.
I'm telling you
See
quickly.
everybody.
First time I've heard that.
See, Austin.
Austin Price. I had to go get engaged. Sorry. Had to go secure a fiance on one of those.
Every time you've been out, he's leaned in.
He has.
I'm talking about same foot, same shoulder.
Okay.
It's like, where's Will
That's
Bowling
why he fits
at?
perfectly on this show.
Yep.
Where's Will
I was
Bowling
wondering
at?
if that was coming at
I
some
know. I
point.
figured I was going to lean in a little bit, but Austin, pro that he is, let Will know.
I love it.
Leaned in.
I love it. Big discussion on that on the Tennessee front coming up at 9:20 this morning, because I am curious what you guys think on how they get to that next level. I know it's where I started with Austin, but there are going to be so many expectations put on Nico Iamaleava next season. And almost in the same way we talk about Patrick Mahomes, I know, stick with me here, earlier this morning, that the sign of a great quarterback is making more unproven skill players great. And he will have much more unproven skill players around him next season, starting at running back, where Dylan Sampson leaves a massive void in that offense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think it's a great conversation. It's also a point to where, rightfully so, Will, the expectations from the fan base are real, though. I mean, you're supposed to, we speak about this in the pros often. The jump from year one to year two, we got to see it, because at that point, it's telling us that you belong. And if you don't, I mean, it's hard to find a pathway to where hope and belief and optimism, if it don't jump out on day one for Nico, I mean, the crowd's going to get loud. There's no time, the way the college football is set up, college football playoffs is set up, that you can just gradually ascend up. No, you got to jump out front early.
Yeah.
Coming up at ESPN.com this morning, Jeremy Fowler has spoken with NFL executives who make predictions about the upcoming offseason, including 2 potential free agent targets that he predicts will not be here. And unfortunately, one of them is Trey Smith. We'll talk about that next.